purpose of this video is to give a little bit more information to teachers whose students might be using DailyMost. First off, you'll all have an account set up that allows you to basically do everything a student could actually do. So you can play around with it, you can try it, you can get familiar with it, you can see the questions. So ultimately then you can ask queries or at least relate to what they're having to actually do. Second bit then is teachers not involved with username password queries. This is one of the things that really used to annoy me, is when I'm expected to maintain an address, passwords being forgotten, usernames, etc., etc. The student needs to know their school email address. If they don't, as long as they know that, the system knows their password, it will email them their password, they can sort this out. It is not your job as a teacher to be mollycoddling them and providing them with a username and password. Third bit is as well, another thing with a lot of systems, the whole idea of this is for individual teachers there is minimal interaction required with the system. It should be administered and controlled centrally. That means that for a limited and very small amount of admin you actually get benefits to all classes, all students across the cohorts. Having said that, there is actually a lot of data within most that we should be able to actually use to improve teaching and learning. But that's probably a little bit further down the line. At the moment, we just want to get the more core basics up and running. So the next bit's then interleaving. At the moment, you should be aware, I've only populated the first parts of the spec in terms of questions. Now, there's a bunch of reasons for that. I'm just starting, starting from the very start. So starting from the start of the spec, going through in order. So most of what's on there at the moment is Year 10 work. Students get to choose from a limited number of offered topics. Now what that actually does is the system prioritises it and gives them currently 4, that's configurable, topics to choose from. That means that they can choose stuff they like, stuff that they want, but after a while it's going to shoehorn them. They are going to have to do topics that they might not immediately choose to do. And those topics are going to be forced on an interleaving basis. Now, the topics are selected on what the student has done. It won't give the same answer to any 2 students unless those 2 students have answered exactly the same questions previously with exactly the same answers, which the chances of that after a day or so are basically negligible. Basically, the topics that are selected, priority is given to where students have got questions wrong. So they've seen a question, we've shown them the answer, they got it wrong, we've shown them the answer, we want them to try and see if they can get it right the next time round. So those come up quite frequently, those are prioritised. Students are expected to be retested on things that they've got right, but that takes slightly longer than things that they've got wrong. So from that perspective, that will prioritise topics further up the list. And it's also topics that basically students haven't attempted, or there's a lot of questions they haven't attempted, those get prioritised up the list too. So what will happen is there's a nice sort of interleaving of all of these topics across biology, chemistry and physics coming through. Equally, it will balance it, so if a student decides, oh, I actually prefer biology but I hate physics, what will happen is they'll be choosing a lot of biology initially, and in the end they're going to be forced to do physics. That's just the way that it's going to pan out, so as those topics are interleaved. Spacing. So, students are revisiting the topics and the questions at intervals. The general premise, as you'd expect, is things you get wrong, you need to do more often than things you get right. To give you a couple of examples of sort of things that are built into the logic around that, the question the student gets wrong, so they will see it as early as 2 days from their last attempt. It will prioritise those up pretty quickly. They can actually improve, so they can focus on the improved quizzes. They can go through those free and just practice the questions that they've got wrong. But those things that they've got wrong from that perspective, as an example, are going to come up pretty quick. However, the question that students got right 3 times in a row is sort of considered fairly well embedded knowledge, and they won't actually see that question again for 3 months. So from that perspective, you can see that the system is going to be spacing out the review or visiting those topics, but it's all going to be actually prioritising those areas that they are less secure on in terms of the questions and the topics they ask. Another question is, well, why 30 points? Well, the honest answer is I planned for 50. However, because of the way the point scoring works, with 3 points for a right answer, 1 part for -1 for a wrong answer, that means whilst you can do the whole day's allocation with 10 questions, getting 10 questions right, if you really don't know that many of the answers and you keep getting answers wrong, it can take quite a bit longer. So I expect to refine the way that this works, and it might be able to tweak the algorithm a bit, it might be able to change the points level a bit. There's a whole bunch of things I can do, but I need to figure out what to do based upon student data. And only once I start getting a decent set of student data can I start kind of refining this better so that it becomes fair across all ability ranges, all years, etc., etc. One thing I would point out is if the number of points, daily points target doesn't actually increase, then the students will actually never complete the course with the number of questions I've written. So what I need to do is actually figure out a solution from that perspective as well. Might well be, if we can't increase the number of questions or expect an answer, that we have to actually reduce the number of questions and make the questions more selective and therefore less thorough at covering the content. Sanctions. Now, inevitably, there will be some students who don't complete the work, and I'm basing a lot of this on what I did last year. We want the students to complete the work. We don't want them to waste time in a DT. A DT has its uses and its purposes, but ultimately, the purpose of these sanctions is to get the students to do the work. The students then learn. The students then get a better GCSE results. The first thing we use is a lunchtime club. Now, Wednesday lunchtime, all students that didn't get the 5 daily goals the previous week have to attend. And they have to attend and show you they have completed 3 days so far this week. Or they have to, if they haven't completed anything this week. So if you can imagine it's on Wednesday, they've done nothing on Monday, they've done nothing not on Tuesday. That means that unless they do Wednesdays, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sundays, they're not going to complete the daily goal anyway. So from that perspective, anybody who hasn't done anything Monday, Tuesday has to be attending on Wednesday. The after school most club is then basically an after school DT on a Friday. Everybody hates it being a Friday. There we go. It's run using the existing school mechanisms in terms of notifications, etc. But the difference is students don't stay for a set amount of time. Students stay until they finish their work. So very different to normal DTs, because quite often what you'll actually discover is the students will work through their lunch, their break, because Friday afternoon they want to go home. And you get students turning up Friday afternoon, showing you the application, going, look, I've done it. And then they go. They have no detention. They've immediately gone. I have had our most challenging students that you can get in a school actually in these detentions. The first time around, they can be very challenging. But typically, by the second or third time, they're going, hang on a minute, the faster I do the work, the faster I can go home, the faster I'm out of here, I'm doing the work. And they'll actually sit there silently working through as fast as they can, with the occasional cheer to themselves in terms of when they get something right. The idea of this is it's not meant to be onerous, so the tracker in most supports a lot of the functionality that teachers need, or somebody needs to run it. The biggest pain is normally the administrative systems in the school in terms of booking things, booking the students into detentions. Ultimately, we don't start sanctions like this until students have been using the system for a couple of weeks. Give them a chance to bed in, give them a chance to get familiar with it, give them a chance to remember what's going on. Future plans, well, there's a huge amount that could be done. Things that immediately come to mind are identifying problems or topics that classes have, so they can be revisited with teachers. Quick quizzes for the class. Recall quizzes are all too common these days. I say all too common. They're very common for a reason. They're very effective at the start of lessons. So being able to tailor the content to how a class is doing on Daily Most seems a logical step, i.e. put the questions up on the board that the class is struggling with so we can build knowledge a lot faster that way. And the system can select those automatically. Have rewards based upon a raffle, for example, and other mechanisms that feed into the school rewards system. Classic one run before is where each student gets a ticket for each question they've answered correctly that week. pick at random out of the raffle, winner 1, 2 and 3. And the nice bit about that is the fact that actually, yes, there's a bias to the more working students or the students who work harder, which is nice. But also on some occasions you actually get the less focused students winning the raffle as well, and they probably actually appreciate it even more. Other things, league table where students can challenge other students. So literally you're competing against the students' stored results. So you compete and the students that you're competing against last results on the systems count for those questions. See if you can beat them or not, have a league table. Class quizzes, we've all run them in various formats where you have a class quiz, the kids are all answering questions on the board, scoring points on the board, who can score the most. Again, can run it through those questions as well actually on the board, make it all interactively. The reality of this is going to depend upon how long I stay interested with the project, how much fun I get out of it, how long COVID is treating me. To some extent, if long COVID goes away, to be brutally honest, and I can get out to the mountains, even at a house, my interest in most is probably going to drop. But we shall see how entertaining it actually proves to be. Anyway, if you've got more specific queries or questions, drop me an email. I'll happily go through. If you've got ideas, same thing. If you've spot problems, same thing. Basically, I want to know that I can work towards making things better. Anyway, apologies. It's meant to be a quick video. I can see it's now 11.5 minutes, which is probably way too much of your time, and I apologise for that. Have a good day.